Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. I've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. I'm here tonight by myself, and I know I started late, guys. I know. 17 minutes late. I do apologize. Philip, no, I do not have a doctor's tardy note. All I have is that it is much more difficult to prepare for a show when you're on your own rather than being able to have kind of a partner with you. I'll be honest, guys, when I do shows with Zach, I mean, obviously I prepare. Like, obviously I get my thoughts together, what I want to say, and all that stuff. I don't do nearly as many notes. When I did that Penn State show with you guys, I was like begging for somebody to call in. And I'm so glad David Greenfield called in because I was like, I did not give myself enough notes. Like, I did a few things and then I was like, oh, yeah, I'll run through this. And then after I got through all my notes, I was like, oh, shoot, I got 15. I'm only 15 minutes in. So I am here with you tonight. I have much more notes. I have my notes on my second monitor over here. So I'm going to do my best to triple task tonight. I am going to do my best to look into the camera. I'm also going to do my best to look at the chat and try to see what you guys have to say. And then I'm also going to do my best to look at my notes and make sure I don't miss anything. So tonight is the ultimate test of if JR can run a show by himself. Not saying I want to keep running a show by myself. I like when Zach is here because I have to do less less prep work. But overall, John, appreciate you being here. He says hilarious timing with the Acho pick. Yeah. Listen, I don't know if this will work or not, but part of me is a thinker, and I'm like, well, if if you got all this stuff going on with Joy Taylor and Acho and everything else, and somebody on YouTube just sees an Acho picture and they say, "Oh, his take. I wonder what his take was," and then they click on it. Who knows? Maybe that'll work out for me. Maybe, and I didn't feel like I clickbaited it. I mean, I was very honest that it's a playoff take, but maybe somebody just doesn't read very well, and then maybe they fall in love with the show. I don't know why you'd fall in love with the show when it's just me on there, but it is what it is. So John says Philip and I can talk to you through the chat, JR. I appreciate that, John. I appreciate that. Philip says, John, I might sidetrack the show to basketball. Yeah, see, you guys are already getting going in the chat. I appreciate that, guys. Yeah, basketball on tonight. I honestly, I've been so busy with like prepping for the show and everything. I haven't even seen what basketball games are on tonight. So it'll be one of those scenarios where uh, during a show I miss the games and I got to go back and watch them the next day, which thankfully I'm able to do that at work, and YouTube TV records all my games for me, so I can just go back and watch them. But a lot to get to tonight, guys. So I put a ton of topics in here. I think there's a lot of topics that we could probably spend just a few moments on, and then there's some topics we'll obviously have to spend some longer time on. So we got some good stuff tonight. We are going to get to Big Ten transfer portal news. We're going to talk about guys who have recently committed, who are kind of high profile guys, or guys who are going to commit, or guys who are kind of on the, still in that like visits phase, but Big Ten teams are looking at them and closely aligned with them. So I do admit there are some teams I don't have anything on because they're just not all that like they're just not doing all that much in the transfer portal right now. Like I tried to find some stuff on Illinois, couldn't really find all that much on Illinois. Tried to find some stuff on a couple other teams and just wasn't able to find all that much. So we have a lot of, Wisconsin, Washington, trying to see who else I got tonight, some Oregon, stuff like that. So we'll get to some of that stuff. And then after that, we will mention every Big Ten team because I'm going to give you guys my way too early expected starters on every Big Ten team. Pretty much everybody has found their quarterback by now. I do reserve judgment. If somebody gets a quarterback in the transfer portal, late or something like that, then maybe I'll change my pick and we'll do these picks again at some point. But so far, that's what we will do. And then I have like the breakdown of like how many first year starters, transfers this year, recruits, that kind of stuff. And we'll talk about that. And then we'll get to some of the playoff drama. So we previewed the playoffs, and then we will get to the playoff drama of the Cotton Bowl, the Emmanuel Acho comments on Will Howard, and then we will also get to the big thing tonight. I think this will probably take the longest. It's the Kirk Herbstreit stuff. I got so many clips from the Andy and Ari thing with them, and I was told by somebody that if you get clips from a show, you just make sure you credit the show and you put a link in the description. So hopefully Andy and Ari don't care that I'm going to put their show on here with clips, but I don't know why you would care. I'm giving you free advertising for your show. So, I mean, it is what it is. But, all right. Joe says, is Wisconsin being sued over allowing a player to transfer? I think it was Xavier Lucas was the one, the freshman. I know that there was some stuff there for a while about like, he couldn't he couldn't transfer and he couldn't get his name into the portal or whatever. I honestly have not checked back in on that. I've not been on Twitter hardly at all today. Honestly, guys, I kept up with the news of stuff. Wisconsin was one that I just completely missed. But um but the Twitter today, I've not been on a whole lot. Honestly, what happened is my kids have been off school for 2 days now, and me and my wife are just trying to do our best to get our jobs done. So I was trying to get my regular job done, also prep for the show at the same time. So sorry, Joe, I don't have anything for you there. Last time I checked, though, he was just trying to get his name into the portal, and it was kind of an interesting situation with what was going on there. Whether it was he put his information there and then Wisconsin didn't put him in, or he didn't go through the right hoops. I'm not honestly not too sure. I'll have to check on that for you. I apologize there, Joe. Yeah, John's right. Indiana signed the Pitt DB Rylan Gandy the other day. Yeah, and they got some good offensive linemen too. And right now, the transfer portal is a huge place for people looking for cornerbacks and safeties. That's really, I would say, all that I believe Indiana needs left, if I'm not mistaken, with another team is they just need some safeties. They got Lewis Moore from Ole Miss, who was previously with Indiana with the Tom Allen regime. But I mean, I think you just need to get a few more bodies in that safety room, and I think Indiana should be good. Other than that, but Rylan Gandy does help in the secondary room overall, so good for them getting him. All right, let's get to some of the transfer portal rumors, news, additions, stuff like that. So. First one, Arizona quarterback Takero Davis. I apologize if I said that wrong. I probably did. He committed to Wisconsin or to Washington. He was the number one cornerback in the transfer portal. So he obviously had a relationship with Jedd Fisch previously when they were at Arizona, and now he is coming to be with Jedd Fisch once again. Don't know if he just couldn't transfer the first time because Jedd Fisch left so late or what was going on there, but he is coming to be with Jedd Fisch. That will definitely help shore up the secondary for Washington. Talked about their defensive line last episode, and I like how they're doing that. I think Washington's one of the more underrated transfer portal classes right now in the Big Ten. I think they're doing a good job. They're top 10 in 24/7. Not sure where they are on three. I didn't check that one earlier, but I know they're top 10 in 24/7, so that's huge for them. They did lose a lot of guys. A lot of guys for them hit the portal, but they're bringing in some high caliber players as well, which is good for them. And they have the quarterback. We'll get more to him here later on, but they also got the quarterback. Appalachian State wide receiver Caden Robinson is currently looking at Michigan. He just got off a visit to UCLA. I believe it was yesterday, and then he is going to a visit at USC. It was either today or tomorrow, or later this week. So he's supposed to be visiting there. So a Michigan, UCLA, USC battle for the App State wide receiver Caden Robinson, the quarterback of Caden Robinson, Joey. I'm Euler. He did already go to UCLA, so there could be a connection there with that one. We'll see. And there's a bunch of other teams involved in this too. Those aren't the only three teams. It's just those were the three Big Ten teams that I saw mentioned. So let's see. Yeah, Washington's doing well. Illinois is too. Illinois is getting what they need. You're not going to see Illinois at like the top of some of the rankings because Illinois has so much returning talent. There, Philip said it right there. Gabe Jacques, how do you pronounce it? He is coming back. I think Sonny told me as many as 18 starters could be back on this team. So that's huge for them. Obviously, you get a 10-win season this year. You're bringing back 18 guys. Like it could go really, really well for them next year. Now, you need to still accomplish that, right? Iowa brought back a ton of guys this year, and they went 8-4 or 8-5, I guess, what they lost in their bowl game. So you still need to accomplish that, but this is a really good start for Illinois, especially with their quarterback and everything else to do that. The benefit Illinois will have is it doesn't look like they're changing their entire offense in the offseason, so that will help them as well. Yeah, and Hudson Clement, the wide receiver from West Virginia, I saw that one as well. I don't know a ton about Hudson Clement. I didn't get a ton of time to research him, but as far as I'm concerned, well, I did read somebody say that he was a very nice addition, kind of a Pat Bryant-esque receiver. Don't know exactly what that means, but that's what I read. And like I said, I didn't do a whole bunch more research on it other than that. So if he's anything like Pat Bryant, that'll be really good for Illinois because Illinois really enjoyed the services of one Pat Bryant. All right, let's get to South Dakota Edge, Maquise Grace. He is currently looking at Kentucky, Cincinnati, Wisconsin, Georgia Tech, Mississippi State. Good news for Wisconsin. They're in on this one. Wisconsin does need some edge D-line help a little bit. A big name that a Big Ten team is in on is the Georgia quarterback, Jaden Rashada. So Jaden Rashada, if you remember his whole story, started off going to Florida, very highly rated recruit. I believe he was a 5-star, was either on 3 or 24/7. He started off very highly rated recruit, went to Florida. They didn't pay him the NIL money that he wanted, or I guess that they promised him. I don't know if it was what he wanted, but I guess he was promised NIL money and then he didn't go there. Yeah, Dave Reed showed saying 5-star. So he was 5-star one of those places. So very good quarterback in high school and a lot of projecting going forward. But he left Florida and went to Arizona State for a year, transferred from Arizona State to Georgia. This past year was there, and then I think he probably took a note out of Gunnar Stockton playing before him. Walk on Gunnar Stockton. I don't know what it is with Georgia and walk-on quarterbacks. You got a 5-star. I mean, they did kind of the same thing, not exactly, because I don't think he was a walk-on with Jake Fromm and Justin Fields. It was like, play the 5-star. Like, what are you doing? For whatever reason, Georgia quarterback development just not all that great, which kind of stinks because there's a kid named Ryan Montgomery from Ohio that's going to Georgia that I really hope does well. But I don't know if he's going to do too well with the way the quarterback development has been at Georgia. Jaden Rashada is looking at UCLA right now. He is an early team in contact with him. That's an early team in contact with him. Obviously, there will be more as well as he just recently entered with them losing the playoff game and stuff. But if UCLA can secure Jaden Rashada to come to UCLA, that would be huge. Huge for them. Deshaun Foster, if he can get that to happen, that would be massive. And I would think that you get Jaden Rashada to go there, he's your starter right away, based off everything else that went with, and Georgia got the Branch brothers as well. David, you're exactly right. That was huge for them. But based on everything that's gone on with Jaden Rashada, I don't think he's going to pick a school unless he knows he's the starter, which, we'll talk about Joey Aguilar here soon with UCLA, but got some more names to run through here. Alabama offensive tackle Elijah Pritchard. Nebraska right now is the favorite to land him. I think there's been multiple predictions put in. And just so you guys know, I'm not giving you guys like a bunch of insider information here. Like I hate when people act like they have insider info. A lot of the stuff I'm getting is from 24/7 and On3. There's a few people that I talk to from here and there, but they're mostly Ohio State people. So I know the Ohio State, people that I talk to are not super dialed in on Malik Benson from Florida State, who we'll get to here in a minute. But a lot of the stuff I'm getting to you guys is On3 and 24/7. So whether you read it already or maybe you just didn't get a chance to today, I'll give it to you and kind of give my thoughts. Yeah, like I said, Alabama offensive tackle Elijah Pritchard, Nebraska right now is the favorite to land him. There was a 24/7 guy that was saying that LSU is getting rather aggressive here, though. So Nebraska, which by the way, Nebraska doing a good job in the portal, getting some good players who were highly rated recruits. Maybe didn't have the best careers so far, but moving on to the Big Ten. I did a video a couple of days ago about how the SEC is getting weaker because a lot of their depth is leaving the SEC and heading over to the Big Ten, the Big 12 conferences like that. And Nebraska is kind of one of the biggest examples of that. I used Michigan as an example of getting Justice Haynes and some of those guys, but Nebraska could have been another easy example to use. So huge for Nebraska if they can land Elijah Pritchard as well. The Tulane running back, Mekhi Hughes, his brother is actually Neem Offord. If you're an Ohio State fan, you know that name. Highly rated recruit that is going to Oregon this next year. He just committed to Oregon today. So the star running back, I believe he's like a 90 or a 91 rating, something like that. So very high rating out of the transfer portal. He has committed to Oregon. Should shore up some of their running back depth there, and will probably be getting quite a few carries, if not get the bulk of the carries next season. Florida State running back or wide receiver Malik Benson. Tennessee and Kansas State were in contact with him, but Oregon landed him. Now I did read, I believe it was the guy on three, whether it's Nakos or they have another guy that does. Is it Wiltfong? Maybe. Sometimes I just read through these on three articles. I don't always remember who wrote it, but they said that even though he committed to Oregon, apparently Tennessee and Kansas State are still trying. So I mean, he's committed. So I don't think anything's going to change there. But we're starting to get into that situation now with the transfer portal where it's like committed, but they didn't sign yet. So I guess if you're an Oregon fan, I would just maybe keep an extra eye out there for the signing of Malik Benson post because for whatever reason, there is kind of the flipping that can go on, which I know the Cole Cabana from Michigan did that to Minnesota. He flipped from there and it went to Western Michigan instead. I don't know the exact story that happened there, but that did happen. Yes, and Philip is right. Mark Gronowski, almost said Gronkowski, Gronowski to Iowa. If you guys remember, I did in fact remember. If you guys remember when Iowa played South Dakota State, that's where Mark Gronowski is from. Iowa played South Dakota State, 2022. The score of that game was 7-3, and you would have thought, "Oh wow, Iowa got a touchdown." No, they did not. Iowa got two field goals and no, it was a field goal and two safeties in that game. That's how they got 7 points. And Iowa won that game because of a field goal and two safeties, which it's kind of crazy. And I was like, oh wow, I remember South Dakota State for that. And then I was like, what year was that? And so I looked it up. Gronowski, that was his very first start at South Dakota State was against Iowa during that game. So what a full circle moment we've come to where Iowa uh, faced Gronowski and got two safeties on his offense and one with a field goal. And the defense held South Dakota State to only a field goal and was able to win that game. That is a game I will never forget watching. That was such a fun game. Gronowski's a good quarterback though. He's had a good career at South Dakota State. He had hopes of going to the NFL. Felt like he had some possibilities of being drafted. So you get a quarterback who is going from possibly being drafted and possibly going to the NFL this year to come to Iowa instead. It's a little bit of an interesting situation. I find it very interesting how much teams are going after FCS players this year, and not just for like depth and special teams, but to start. Like, in my opinion, after seeing everything that happened, like I really could see Mark Gronowski, not just see, I think he will be the starter at Iowa next year. So to go from FCS to, not just Power Four, but the Big Ten and be a starter in the conference, like that's huge. So obviously Tim Lester is doing some things there at Iowa, really getting his offense put into the system, really getting his offense involved. That's great. I think if you're an Iowa fan, that's what you love to see. He's getting his pick. Now, I do wonder what's going to happen with Brendan Sullivan. I think Brendan Sullivan had a good opportunity to be the starter this last year or this coming year, but for whatever reason, they're probably not going to go with him, or it's going to be a competition. I think Mark Gronowski wins that competition, but you never know. Brendan Sullivan could make a huge jump this next year. I will say one more thing on Gronowski. The thing I like most about him is he improved his sack total every single year. His very first year, he was sacked 18 times. His second year, he was sacked 10 times. Third year, he was sacked only 8 times. And so I think for Iowa, that is a huge thing that they have to avoid. We'll see what the offensive line is like next year and how that goes, but it's a huge thing for them to avoid. So Mark Gronowski, fourth-year starter this year, if he's able to start at Iowa, would be huge for them. Love that. John says a buddy of mine told me IU should have went and got Gronowski. I don't know. I think I like Mendoza better. I like the experience of Mendoza better. I don't know who the better quarterback is, but um, I think I like the experience of being in the ACC and moving up from there to the Big Ten. I think I like that better. Oh, also watches more FCS. Yeah, yeah. He might just really like the FCS, and but sometimes players can do it, sometimes players can't. We saw Max Brosmer do it. Max Brosmer did it. Went from New Hampshire to Minnesota, and that was great for them. Dave Greenshield, could you see Trey McNutt flipping from Oregon to OSU? No, I don't think. I think some massive things would need to change in Trey McNutt's life if that were going to happen, and I don't think that's happening. I'll leave it at that. Red Winds says Kirk and Paul knocked it out of the park with Bama being in the playoffs. Not sure. I understand the reference there. Red wine. I thought it said something else at first. I apologize if you were getting at something different there and go away. So yeah. All right. Let's go back to the portal players. Kent says you're missing Carver Magic right now. I got it. This is the hard part about doing a show by myself. When I'm doing with Zach, when he's on, oh, Red Wine says he was just kidding. Okay, I apologize. I didn't get the joke, Red Wine. Sometimes when you're on by yourself, it's really hard to read through the comments. Like I said, yeah, the Nebraska game right now. I got to go back and watch that one. Kent, text me and let me know after the show is over what's going on. All right, let's get to some more players. Clemson wide receiver Troy Stellato. I love that last name, Stellato. Kentucky, West Virginia, and Michigan are all in on him. So Michigan getting involved with the wide receivers. They need to, losing Tyler Morris, which, by the way, they got Donovan McCauley. So kind of like a trade swap thing going on with Michigan and Indiana. I found that rather funny. Indiana got Tyler Morris, and Michigan got Donovan McCauley. That was interesting. So we'll see if Michigan can land the Clemson wide receiver, and the Ohio edge, Bradley Weaver. He's coming off of trips to or a trip to Wisconsin, and then Indiana, Rutgers, and Virginia are also in the mix here. Good player from Ohio, had a good season this past year. I have to believe that the connection with Curtis Rourke would help in this situation. We see a lot of things that help teams in the transfer portal. Number one, if you got a player from that school previously, it does in fact help you to get more players from that school. Number one, because if that player knows the other players, they can oftentimes, be kind of like, hey, I like this place, and kind of give you the recommendation of like, yeah, you'll like it here as well. And then, and then the other aspect of it there, which is like, if maybe you kind of create a pipeline, right? Like, I mean, obviously the coaches at the programs won't want that to happen, but you kind of keep bringing players in from there. That's exactly what happened with Quinshawn Judkins and Davis Igbinosun at Ohio State. Davis Igbinosun and Quinshawn Judkins were good friends. Davis Igbinosun for they were there for a year, both as freshmen. Quinshawn Judkins enters the transfer portal. Davis Igbinosun says, "Hey, you'll love it here at Ohio State. They need you." Yada yada yada. Boom shaka boom. It turns into Quinshawn Judkins going to Ohio State. And then the other thing that helps as well is if you play a team and that player was on the team when you played them. Normally, it's the year before they transfer, but I mean, you guys look how many of these players will sometimes transfer to a school and they played them this past year. It happens more often than you would think. And I think honestly what happens is I think a lot of these like coaches will realize like, oh man, this guy's really good. He could be a really good piece for us. And so they not only see the player and think he's good, but they also kind of like, treat him really nice after the game. Maybe it's on the field, or maybe they go to the locker room, or maybe they meet him after the game or something like that. And they're like, hey man, really good game. And then that makes the connection even easier later on if they decide to go in the transfer portal. So it happens. It's an interesting thing. Justice Finkley from Texas, the edge. He was at West Virginia today. He previously visited Minnesota and Mississippi State, so we'll see if the possibility is there for him to go to Minnesota. And then other teams that are in the mix include Nebraska, Georgia Tech, Arizona, and Pitt. They've all been involved with Finkley. So Nebraska, Minnesota involved in the Texas edge. Justice Finkley should be interesting there. And then two of the last three guys are Ohio State guys. Damon Wolfson, the Georgia edge, he got immediate attention from many schools, but this looks like a situation where maybe the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Ohio State, was showing him some interest possibly before he got into the portal. I don't. I mean, I don't really complain about that stuff because it is what it is nowadays. Which obviously, in this situation, Ohio State's the beneficiary, but it is what it is. Almost every single player who goes into the portal is getting tampered with in some way, shape, or form. Does that mean they know exactly where they're going? No. Every single time, right when they enter in? No. But typically, there's some kind of a transfer portal tampering going on almost every single time. John says, "Where is Zach?" Zach had a work trip today, and he's at a hotel. And he said that he wasn't confident he would have good enough internet, and he wasn't able to like pack his microphone and everything like that. So Zach decided to sit this one out, and I've had guests before, but I just thought I'm gonna try it one time by myself. We'll see how it goes. I don't plan on making this a common thing. I want Zach on as often as I can, but yeah, that's where we're at today. And then John also says Indiana finally got some offensive linemen in the portal. They also picked up a starting QB, running back, and a couple CBs. What I don't know is how Indiana portal stacks up against the others. I don't, we could talk about the rankings and stuff like that. It's almost impossible to rank the transfer portal because every team is looking for something different. Unless you have like an insider itself. Philip said Zach should join us in the chat if nothing else. I don't know what he's doing right now. I don't know if he's out to dinner or something like that. It was a late meeting thing. I don't know if he's got to be up early in the morning or something. So if he's already in bed, but yeah, I would have texted him if I was a better thinker beforehand. But yeah, my thing with the rankings is like everybody's trying to do something different in the portal. Like you look at Illinois. Illinois is bringing back so many players. They don't really need to go into the portal and get some of these high caliber players. But Indiana has had to go to the portal and get a quarterback and a running back. And typically those players are, rated higher, maybe not running back as much, but rated higher, so your transfer portal class is going to look better when you do that. So I just try to look at it from an individual basis and say, did they get who they needed? Right now, I feel like Indiana's got what they needed. They did a good job getting offensive linemen and safeties. I feel like is somewhere they can improve. Um, John saying Taven Jackson going to UCF. Yeah, I saw that. I thought UCLA possibly with the quarterback opening with Justin Martin going and what's his name? The quarterback coach going out there to be the offensive coordinator. But yep, didn't work out. Didn't work out. Erica Goldberg is Indiana's quarterback from the season out of eligibility. Yes, he'll be in the NFL draft. Curtis Rourke will be in the NFL draft for sure. All right, couple more. Sam Phillips, Chattanooga, wide receiver, FCS player, visited Iowa last week. There's a lot of players that are in the mix for him. So, Sinceri, that's right. Thank you, Joe. Tino Sinceri. So Sam Phillips, he is probably going to get a lot of attention from Iowa. He went on a visit there. I would think you would have committed already if you were going to go to Iowa, but the changing factor is Gronowski. So they have a quarterback that they picked up from the FCS, and that is a pretty good signing for them. So who knows? Maybe Mark Gronowski changes some things, but like I said, there's some other visits and stuff like that coming up for Sam Phillips as well. So there doesn't appear to be any favorite. I probably wouldn't make Iowa the favorite, but they're at least involved in this one. So we'll see what happens. And then finally, Connor Moore from Montana State, offensive lineman. Montana State just got eliminated, I believe, from the FCS playoffs, and so their players are starting to hop into the portal. And offensive lineman Connor Moore heading into the portal. He's gonna probably go to Ohio State. Feel like there's probably a little bit more of the, wink, wink, nudge, nudge going on with that one. So, Ohio State, they know how to tamper and they are doing it. So it's what it is. Like I said, guys, at this point, everybody's doing it. And if you're not doing it, you're at a disadvantage. So I don't like it. I don't want it to happen. But if I'm being honest, like it happens. So Erica says Gronowski helped lead San Diego State to FCS championships and also won the FCS equivalent to the Heisman, if my memory is correct. I do believe I read the Heisman part as well. I forgot to mention the championships earlier. So, Erica, I appreciate you putting that in there. I think he's huge. Yeah, I mentioned him earlier. I think he's huge for Iowa. Like I said, the experience, being there for a year. Hopefully, Brendan Sullivan will stick around after that. But yeah, so Jr. I don't understand what you don't like. I don't know. What did I say I don't like? I think I said I like Indiana's class. If that's what you're talking about, John. Um, yeah, like I said, just need safeties. Just need safeties for the Indiana class, and Kirk's know he's going to be on that, and I'm sure he'll get that. So, um, you were just talking about it. Uh, I'm at a loss, John. Doing the show by myself. You're going to be a little bit more specific. I apologize. All right, guys. That is the transfer portal rumors and Big Ten additions, stuff like that. Update any other additions that you guys want to mention. I will be glad to give my thoughts on if I've done much thought into them. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. PK says IU needs an edge. They could use an edge for sure. Mikael Kamara coming back definitely helps with that one. So but yeah, they could use an edge. I don't think it's as dire as a need of safety. I think safety is the biggest need right now for Indiana. That's just me though. So, all right, guys, I'm going to do a commercial so that way I can take a drink really fast, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the Big Ten starting QBs in 2025. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Have you ever wanted to watch all 22 film, that film the coaches watch? Well, now you can. Introducing the Coaches Film Room. Over at Minutes to Sports, former college coach Zach Smith breaks down film of the most relevant teams in college football with a bit of a Big Ten lead. It's not free, so you'll need to sign up for the Colonel tier, which is $25 a month, but I can attest to you that it is far more worth it than that. With about 4 to 8 games per week, this is worth so much more money, not to mention Zach's analysis, making you a smarter football fan. Go check it out. The links are in the description, minutestosports.com. You won't be sorry.
Back here on the Big Ten Huddle. Appreciate all of you being here. Yes, we are going to talk next about the Big Ten quarterback outlook for 2025. We'll focus on the starters. I'm not going to get super in depth into every single quarterback on the roster for every team. That would take forever. And then also, I don't think people care about the third string quarterback of Maryland. No offense, Maryland fans. I don't think people care. I know you care, but most other people don't. Illinois, we'll start at the top and then we'll go on down. If you guys have thoughts on who you think your starter is or should be or anything like that, put them in the chat and I might skip around, but I'm gonna go from the bottom to the top in alphabetical order. So Illinois, their starter obviously is gonna be Luke Altmaier. He comes back and he's gonna have his third year of starting for Illinois. He is a transfer. Going to be a huge year, I believe, for Luke Altmaier, as long as they can surround him with good wide receiver play like they did this year. The offensive line should improve. Really felt like Illinois was able to figure out their running game a little bit more later into the year. So if they can capitalize on all those things and improve the offense in those ways, you're going to look for a better year for Luke Altmaier in Illinois. I had some people when I did my Heisman watch thing. What was it? It was right after the Heisman ceremony for 2025. I had some people mentioning Luke Altmaier. I mean, I would love that. Don't get me wrong. I don't know if anybody from Illinois is going to win a Heisman um, anytime soon. And I hate to say that because I don't want that to be the case, but if I'm just looking at it realistically, you're probably going to see if the Big Ten gets a Heisman, you're probably going to see it happen from an Oregon, an Ohio State, a USC, a lot of these bigger brands. Now, a guy from Colorado did just win the Heisman, but I think that Dion kind of aided him more in that. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but I think Ohio State, USC, Oregon, Penn State, those are the guys you're probably going to be looking at to possibly win the Heisman next year for the Big Ten. Could Luke Altmaier do it? Sure. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. Indiana, Fernando Mendoza. I believe this will be his third year starting. And correct me if I'm wrong. John, you might be able to know for sure. Is this the third year for Fernando Mendoza? He started every game, well, pretty much every game this year. Yep, and then he started the week 6 game against Oregon State. So I'll count that for him. How many games is that? That's 8 games in 2023. So Yes, Fernando Mendoza will be the starting quarterback. He is a transfer this year. This will be his third year starting, and John Jacobs letting us know Mendoza has 2 years of eligibility left. That's huge, huge for Indiana. Getting a guy who has 2 years of pretty much 2 years of starter experience, and he also has 2 years of eligibility remaining. That's awesome. So, Eric is talking more about Gronowski, so let's go ahead and skip down to Iowa, which actually Iowa's next. So. She says Gronowski will be QB1 at Iowa. Solely will be QB2 and maybe some packages. Perhaps Lester runs a dual QB system. Also, I think Stratton will transfer. I heard that he either is expected to or has been in the portal. The portal's closed by now, so if he is going to transfer, he would have already needed to be in there. But I did not double check on Stratton before I got on here. I apologize. But yes, that would be my expectation as well. That's what I think. Mark Gronowski will be QB1. Brendan Sullivan will be QB2. I think that they want to kind of keep molding him, keep getting him to be better. I honestly think Brendan Sullivan just needs reps. I think that's what it is. I think that he has a lot of some good skill sets, and I think it works well with he'll enter the spring portal, Erica says. Okay, enter the spring portal. That 10-day window there in April. But I really like Brendan Sullivan. I was advocating for him to be the starter last year with Cade McNamara. I'm glad that he eventually got his chance. I think that it really helped him in his development. I think if Brendan Sullivan is willing to stick around, which I don't know why you wouldn't be. I mean, Mark Gronowski is not going to be there much more than 1 year. It's going to be huge, huge for him to get another year, kind of learning back there, and huge for Iowa as well. So Gronowski going to have a good year, I think, as long as Tim Lester's system is able to kind of implement and do those things. So I'm excited for Iowa's offense next year. Wow, never thought I'd say that, but I am. I mean, I am. I think Tim Lester did some good things this year. I'm looking forward to it. Should be a good time. Oh, Erica says Sully only has 1 year left. I thought he was younger than that. Oh, that stinks. He might go into the winter portal then. I thought he had 2 years left. My apologies. My apologies. How long was he at Northwestern for? He was at Northwestern. Well, the 5th year of eligibility might change things. You never know. That was going to be something that we could talk about as a possible, keeping some of these guys on. I don't know if that would affect Gronowski. I feel like Gronowski, after 4 years of starting in college football, he'd probably want to move on. But yeah, if we pull up Brendan Sullivan, yeah, he's 2021 class. I thought he was 2022 class. I completely missed that first year there. So yeah, sounds like he's only got 1 year left. So thanks for keep me straight there, Erica. All right, let's get to the next one, which is Justin Martin, Maryland. Justin Martin transfers in. Looked like there was going to be a QB battle between him and MJ Morris, the transfer from NC State this last year. And Erica's an Iowa fan. There we go. We need some more Iowa fans here. We got Indiana and Illinois fans. Now we have an Iowa fan. We've completed the eyes of the Big Ten. There we go. We now have a fan of every single eye in the Big Ten. I love it. Justin Martin, he started against Penn State this past year. I thought he did a good job. Didn't turn the ball. Well, he didn't have a pick. I don't remember if he had a fumble or not. I don't think he turned the ball over at all in that one. That was a game that UCLA was in it more than maybe they should have been, and some people were kind of critiquing Penn State a little bit in that one. I didn't personally do it. I just thought, you put in a new quarterback, and sometimes the offense can change a little bit, and it's harder to scout for that. Penn State pulled away later on, if I remember correctly, in that game. So I wasn't too worried about it, but he threw for 160 some yards, I believe, a touchdown, no interceptions. So going up against a very good Penn State defense like that at Happy Valley, too, it wasn't a whiteout or anything. I believe it was a noon game, but I mean, just a good performance from him. So we'll see what he can be at Maryland. Oh, and in high school, he threw 13 touchdown passes. 13 touchdown passes in one game in high school. So, if Mike Locksley wants to get himself a guy who is willing to throw the ball a lot, he got himself one there. So, yeah, Justin Martin, I think good addition for Maryland. Michigan is next. I think Michigan is going to be our first kind of really question mark at who we look at here. So they have Mikey Keene from Fresno State. Philip, I don't know if you're still in the chat, but I know you were, of the mindset that Bryce Underwood would start next year at Michigan. I believe he will as well. Zach seemed to believe that Mikey Keene would start for the year, and then they would go to Bryce Underwood the next year. I mean, anything's possible, and I don't mean to, you know, throw shade at Zach and say that Zach was wrong or anything like that, but I feel like you're paying Bryce Underwood that much money to come in and to play. Like, I think you got to give him the starter role. If you don't, like Mikey Keene is going to make a bigger impact in Big Ten drama than he is on the field at Michigan if he starts. I don't, I don't mean to be rude to Mikey Keene, and I think Mikey Keene would have been better than any option they had in this past year. Like he would have been better than any of the quarterbacks they had. But I just like NIL matters, right? NIL matters and who plays and who doesn't play for your program. So the way I look at it, you pay him that much NIL, he's going to have to start. So if he doesn't start game one, he'll start game two, game three, game eight. He's going to start at some point next year. And I think that's ultimately why Billy Edwards Jr. didn't go to Michigan. Billy Edwards Jr. was predicted by a lot of people to go there. And then I think he found out pretty quick, like, yeah, they're not going to play me. So he went on up to Wisconsin instead, which probably was a good move. Good job there, Billy Edwards Jr. So Hummus Hero is here with us. Thanks for being here, Hummus. He says salary cap is coming. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I don't know how exactly it's going to work out. Could work out with the conferences. Could work out overall. But if they try to do it with this whole revenue sharing situation, it's not going to matter because you're still going to have collectives throwing money out there for these guys. It has to happen through contracts. It has to happen through the conference or through the NCAA or something like that. So I do believe as you do, Hamasiro, like there is some kind of salary cap coming. Really, what we just need somebody in charge of college football. Who was it? Did James Franklin say it should be Nick Saban? I think he did. I don't know about that. Nick seems a little angry at everything. He might come in and just get rid of NIL altogether, which he couldn't do that. It's the law now, but still, yeah. All right, next one, Michigan State. Aiden Childs, second year starter. He is technically a transfer because he came from Oregon State. He's going to come in or not, he's going to come in. He was there last year. He's going to start again for Michigan State this year. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. I believe Michigan State hired the quarterback coach away from Oregon State. So that's another piece for them there. But yeah, I mean, I apologize, Michigan State fans. I don't have a whole lot more to say about Aiden Childs other than I think he has a good arm. I think that the ball comes out of his hand very pretty. I don't know if pretty is the best way you want me to describe it, but when I first saw him throw, I was in awe. I was in awe of the way the ball would come out of his hand and the arm talent that he had. Because I didn't expect it. I expected a dual threat QB guy that kind of was maybe a little, he did some good things, but it was maybe a little difficult for him. But at the end of the day, he proved me wrong with his arm and his ability there. So I like Aiden Childs a lot. Just needs to figure out the turnovers, which he did a better job of throughout the year. So he'll increase, he'll improve, he'll get better, and we'll see. Minnesota is an interesting one. Minnesota had brought in transfer Zach Perone, however you pronounce it, from Georgia Tech. He started a few games there, kind of here and there, but yeah, he's coming in as a transfer. Drake Lindsey was the freshman this year that backed up Max Brosmer. I mean, I have to believe Zach Pyron or Perone, however you pronounce it, he will be the starter for Minnesota next year. You bring him in; he's a transfer portal guy. He's going to add a veteran presence. But when I was reading some of the Minnesota writers about him, they talked about him. He was going to bring experience and depth, and I was like, okay. I don't know. Maybe Drake Lindsey's the guy. Maybe Drake Lindsey just has that good of an arm, and maybe he looks that good. But I have to believe PJ Fleck is going to want to go into the season with another veteran. I know that he's not Max Brosmer or anything like that, but I have to believe he's going to want to go into the season with a veteran. So I'll go with Zach Pyron. I was hoping Mike Alibaba would be here and maybe give us some insight on that. But Mike, if you watch this after the fact, comment and let me know what you think, if it's going to be Drake Lindsey or Zach Pyron. So I'll go with Zach Pyron. That's who I will put what's the word? Not expectation. My prediction on. All right, Nebraska, Dylan Raiola, everybody's favorite quarterback in the Big Ten. I'll tell you, every time I mention him, He gets roasted every time I mention him on Twitter. There are a lot of people that do not like Dylan Raiola. Mostly not Nebraska fans. But there's some Nebraska fans that aren't too fond of him either. But I did a video on Dylan Raiola. I think Dylan Raiola just keep getting better. I think that he's done some things really well, and he's also had some areas where he really needs to improve. But he's just going to keep getting better. He was a freshman this past year. Not everybody can come out with kind of that magic that DJ Lagway did, and DJ Lagway didn't even play the entire year, right? Like Dylan Raiola came in and he kind of had that magic right off the bat. Like against Colorado, he did well. I believe if I remember correctly, he did well. It really wasn't until that Illinois game that he struggled, which Illinois had good defense this year. So, you're going to struggle with that kind of stuff. So, Dylan Raiola and his Patrick Mahomes, look-alike contestness, we'll see. But yeah, Dylan Raiola, homegrown talent from Nebraska, coming in as a recruit and now starting his second year. You love to see that kind of stuff. So, Northwestern, Preston Stone should be the guy there. Highly rated recruit. Went to SMU. Did not work out for him exactly the way he wanted to. Lost the starting job to Kevin Jennings this past year. He was a starter in 2023. Led the team to, I think, an 8-0 conference record, if I'm remembering correctly, in the American. So, he's got some talent. He was not going to start at SMU this next year, so he decided to transfer out. He moves on up to the Big Ten. So Preston Stone at Northwestern could be a good addition for them. We'll see how it works out. I know Zach talked about him as an underrated addition, and I agree. I think Preston Stone's gonna have a good year next year. One of the only first year starters in the Big Ten. I mean, there's a couple others that I mentioned, Zach Pyron, uh, Bryce Bryce Underwood and stuff. I expect Julian Sayin to be the starter for Ohio State next year. Now, Ohio State could always go into the transfer portal and get somebody if they didn't feel confident, and there is some thought process there of like Julian Saint isn't exactly super tall and, all that big. And Ryan Day kind of likes taller, big guys. That's why one of the reasons why he liked Will Howard so much. So we'll see. But I think as of right now, there's not really anybody else you go with other than Julian Saint. And Devin Brown is transferring out. I guess he could withdraw from the transfer portal. There's a lot of people talking about how he was going to Cal, and then Cal just picked up that Hawaiian guy from Oregon. He was a 4-star recruit that I think is going to want to go there and start right away. Which we meant to talk about him last episode, but we didn't have enough time. So yeah, I think it's going to be Julian saying he is technically a transfer because he came from Alabama and he came in the transfer on over with Caleb Downs and Seth McLaughlin. Seth McLaughlin transferred before Saban retired, and then Caleb Downs transferred after Saban retired, and Julian Sain was in that same boat. So Billy Tuesday heard OSU staff is high on Sain. I think they're high on his arm ability and all that stuff. I know Ryan Day kind of likes the the bigger guys. So I don't know if that'll impact it at all. I have no insider knowledge there. I have no idea. I always point that out just because I feel like it's a little bit of a talking point. And Hamasiro says Keen Holtz is still on the roster. Jr. He could do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say anything against Keen Holtz, but Keen Holtz also said he was kind of 50-50 off on if he was gonna transfer or not, which kind of leads me to believe like, oh, maybe that means he thinks he won't be the starter. Maybe he really likes the team, so he wants to stick around. So we'll see. I really like Keen Holtz though. I had a whole lot of respect for him going into that Missouri game and battling the way he did. Now it was not exactly very pretty, but he battled, man, and I appreciate that from a guy who's willing to go in there and battle like that. Didn't punk out, didn't do anything like that. So we'll see. Erica says, and I know there's some Ohio State fans in the chat, so I'm sure they'll answer. I have a question for Ohio State. For any Ohio State fan, do you think Ryan Day will be at OSU if he doesn't win the Natty? Just curious your thoughts. I'm sure everybody will be able to answer you in the chat, Erica. My thoughts are that he's safe now. I don't think there's any reason he would be fired or anything like that. Now, the Patriots job is open. That's always been rumored. I don't think he leaves for the Patriots job because they fired Gerard Mayo, I think it was. So I don't think you'll see him leave or anything like that. But if he was not going to be the coach at Ohio State next year, I believe it would probably be because he leaves. I don't see him getting fired. So good question, Erica. Appreciate it. Moving on to Oregon and Dante Moore, I think will be the starter for Oregon. Again, another interesting situation. He transferred in to Oregon after starting his freshman year at UCLA, so technically he will be a second year starter, and technically he will be a transfer, even though he didn't transfer start right after he transferred in. But he looks to be the guy. Looks like they did not have anybody else transfer in or anything like that. I believe Austin Novosad, correct me if I'm wrong, please. This is another one of those situations where I would look this up if Zach were here while he was talking, but I believe Austin Novosad is still with the team. I don't think he got into the transfer portal, but all the rumors are that the Hawaiian kid, and one of the reasons why I'm calling him Hawaiian kid, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I apologize. But one of the reasons why he transferred out of Oregon and is probably, or he is going to Cal now, it's not probably, is because he saw Dante Moore and said, yeah, I'm not starting over him. So if that's the case, Dante Moore is that intimidating of a guy and they just know he is the quarterback for next year, then yeah, he'll be the guy. Penn State, Drew Aller coming back. Now, I do think it's interesting. Right? Drew Aller has the ability to still leave if he wants to. And who's Drew Aller? Where's Drew Aller from? From Ohio. What fan did Drew Aller grow up as of an NFL team? The Browns. Who has a top three, top two pick in the NFL draft this year? The Browns. So the Browns could find their quarterback in Drew Aller for this year. Now, I don't think it's going to happen. Drew Aller's not been in a lot of the mock drafts that I look at. I know he's been in some to possibly go in the first round for this year before he made his declaration that he was going to come back for Penn State next year. But looks like he's going to be pretty high up there prospect, probably middle first round is what you're looking at right now. Top 20, top 10 possibly for next year. We'll see, but yeah, so that's where you're looking at. David, I'll star that and I'll get back to that after I'm done talking about the quarterbacks. I'm going to try and clip this video and make it into a additional video to post, so I don't want to get too off topic, but I'll come back to that, David. Purdue. All right, so Purdue's really interesting. Purdue has three different transfer quarterbacks coming in. Let me find out. All right, you have Evans Chuba from Washington State. He does not have a rating on 24/7, so don't know what that rating is. However, he was at Washington State last year, and obviously that John Mateer guy was the big name that came out of Washington State. So Evans, Chuba, not a huge name. Malachi Singleton comes in. He has an 87 rating on 24/7. The backup quarterback for Arkansas last year, and then EJ Colson from UCF transfers in as well. So you got three different quarterbacks that are transferring in to Purdue. I did a little bit of reading on each one. From what I could find out, it looks like Malachi Singleton will be the guy for Purdue this next year. It would be his first year starting. He did make a start at Arkansas this past year. Believe from everything I read, it was a good start, played well, threw for a good amount of yards, had a touchdown pass. I don't believe he had an interception in that one. So if that's the case, Purdue could find themselves a quarterback coming in from the SEC. Could be a good addition for them there. Honestly, I don't know too much on this one. The whole Purdue program right now is a little bit of a mystery on what's going on. They had a bunch of players leave, and they brought a bunch of players in, a bunch of players from UNLV. Obviously, Matthew Saluka, not going to bring him in after what he did at UNLV and everything last year. So they're going to go elsewhere. But yeah, should be interesting to see what happens in the quarterback situation. That's probably the one I'm the most unsure about right now. Rutgers, Athan Kaliakmanis is going to come back this next year. So Athan Kaliakmanis will start for his third year. He is a transfer, and that'll be interesting to see Athan Kaliakmanis this next year. Hopefully they get a better run game, or a more consistent run game. They had a good run game at Rutgers last year when Kyle Monangai was in there, but when you lost out on him, it was a little bit of a mess trying to move the ball at times when they didn't have him. So and they just got in too many third and long situations. I know there's a lot of people that crap on Athan Kaliakmanis, and I get it. Like a lot of Minnesota fans have bad feelings about him. I get it. Like he left like that and everything. I just think Athan Kaliakmanis is the type of guy who needs to be in the right situation in the right system. And that makes him a bad quarterback. So be it. He's a bad quarterback. I don't think it makes you a bad quarterback to need to be in the right situation and, kind of in the right, offense. And I think he was in the right offense last year. I just think he didn't get I don't think he got the help in the right game that he needed in order to play as well as he should have. So, all right, next one, UCLA. This is another one. Your guess is as good as mine. I do think the top two names in this one are probably going to be Madden Iamaalva from he is a four-star recruit coming in. I believe he is the brother of Nico and Joey Aguilar, Aguilar, App State transfer. Now, if they get Jaden Rashada, like I said, Jaden Rashada is probably your guy in this situation. If they get Jaden Rashada, I don't think Jaden Rashada goes someplace where he's not starting. So, but if they don't get Jaden Rashada, I think you keep Madden. I think you start Joey this year. Madden is, like I said, a true freshman. Just don't think Deshaun Foster wants to take a chance trying to start a four-star true freshman in the Big Ten. I think he probably feels like he needs to do something this season after some momentum at the end of last season, but are not exactly going a great way for them. So we'll have to see what happens there. But yeah, like I said, if they get Jaden Rashada, should be him. If not, probably Joey Aguilar. USC, Jada Maava, second-ish year. You could say first year. You could say second year started. Well, I guess you could say third year. I missed the UNLV. We'll say second year because he only started, 4 or 5 games this year, so it wasn't a lot. So we'll say second year starting. It is his second year with the program. He started at, I believe it was UNLV where he was, and then he comes over to USC now starting this year. So I like that for them to have him back for another year. Lincoln Riley knows what he's doing with quarterbacks. Jada Maava, he had some promising signs this last year, but he also had some issues, some mistakes that kind of cost him a little bit. So I think that Notre Dame game, if he would have been a little bit more clean in that game, they could have had a chance to win it, but unfortunately they didn't have that. So Washington, Demond Williams, who is a transfer. He did transfer in from Arizona. So he is a transfer coming in from Arizona. His first year starting will be this year. To my knowledge, they've not gotten a quarterback or anything like that would start. I'm double checking my sheet right now. I do not see a quarterback on my sheet for him to start over him. They did get some good, we talked about it earlier, they did get some good defensive transfers, but yeah, they're going to be relying on Demond Williams, and he'll have a good weapon in Jonte Cook, who transferred there, the former 5-star from Texas, transferred to Washington. All right, last one. This one's pretty easy. Billy Edwards Jr., the transfer, second-year guy coming in to where did Miller Moss land? Yes, Louisville. Louisville is where he's at. Good combination there between Miller Moss and Jeff Brom. Good combination there. Billy Edwards Jr., he's going to be a guy at Michigan. They brought in Danny O'Neal as well, I believe, but I believe you'll see Billy Edwards Jr. and Danny O'Neal will most likely be the guy next year. So your outlook there is first-year starters in the Big Ten. If everything I said is correct, first-year starters in the Big Ten, 6 of them. 6 first-year starters in the Big Ten next year. Second-year starters in the Big Ten. You're looking at 6 of them. 6 second-year starters in the Big Ten. Third-year starters, 5 of them. And then finally, fourth-year starter. Hello, Mark Gronowski. 1. 1 fourth-year starter in the Big Ten. That'd be pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Transfers. If you're looking at just transfers, not like transferred in this year, that kind of stuff. If you're looking at guys who have transferred to a Big Ten program this next year, 15 of the starters next year could all be transfers. It's absolutely crazy. The only guys that you're looking at to not be transfers would be Drew Aller, Bryce Underwood, and Dylan Raiola. So if Bryce Underwood doesn't start, we could have 16 transfers starting in the Big Ten next year. That would be absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy if that happens. So, like I said, some of these are a little iffy, right? Julian's saying he is technically a transfer, but he was really more of a decommit and then go to Ohio State from Alabama, but still technically a transfer, so a little bit up in the air there. And then guys who transferred in this year, of my predictions, 7. 7 of them would be guys who transferred in this year. And then guys who were recruited, like I said, 15 transfers. That would be 3 guys who are recruited. Bryce Underwood, Dylan Raiola, and Drew Aller. So there you go. That's your QB outlook for the Big Ten next year. if you guys have any questions or anything, let me know. We're going to hit a commercial break really fast. And then after that, we'll talk about some playoff drama and everything. Oh, David had a question. So, JR, what are your playoff picks for this week? I picked Ohio State 31-17, and then I picked Penn State. What did I pick that one? I believe I picked it. It was something like 21-13 or something like that. Yeah, I think Penn State will win that one. I just believe in the weapons of Penn State more than Notre Dame. Maybe I'm foolish. We'll see. But yeah, those were my playoff picks for this weekend. You'll also in this next segment get my playoff pick on if the Cotton Bowl is staying at the same time or if it's going to be moved. Be right back.
The Big Ten Huddle is brought to you by the College Huddle, the largest fan-led college sports podcast community on the internet. With contributors from 70 different schools, you will get in all kinds of analysis from all over the country. Go visit thecollegehuddle.com to find your team and read articles from all across so many fans and contributors. The College Huddle is fan-made, fan-driven, and fan-fueled.
Back here on the Big Ten Huddle. Hummus Hero asks, are you considering saying a transfer? He's more of a after signing flip. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, technically, it's 15 transfers because technically Sayin is a transfer, but I mean, you could easily say it's actually 14 because Sayin basically flipped. I mean, not even a month after he signed with Alabama. So, yeah, kind of weird situation, but it is what it is. So, you could still means a lot of transfers next year starting in the Big Ten. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. All right, so the Cotton Bowl. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one, but it was something to talk about, and so I wanted to throw it in there. Cotton Bowl is being forced to release a statement as severe weather threatens the college football playoffs between the Texas Longhorns and the Ohio State Buckeyes. Here's a part of the statement that I thought was notable that I'll read to you guys. They said, "We are routinely monitoring weather reports, and we are in close contact with AT&T Stadium and local officials. We always have plans for inclement weather should conditions warrant it. We will communicate to everyone attending and connected with this year's Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic." So they didn't completely leave it out. All right, they are supposed to be anywhere from like 3 inches to 12 inches. There's some models out there that are predicting a foot for the Cotton Bowl. Now, if a foot happens, I don't think Dallas is prepared enough to put on this game. If a foot happens, I think you're probably going to see the game rescheduled. I mean, that's just me because I don't think Dallas is prepared enough for a foot to happen on Thursday night and then to play a game. What would that be? 18 hours later. I just don't think it's going to happen. Now, they do have the benefit of the game happening, after the whole snowstorm that's supposed to come on Thursday night. But still, you could continue to see weather happen there. So this ain't Ohio. This ain't Iowa. This ain't Indiana, right? Where they're prepared for the snow. This isn't Wisconsin. Maybe Wisconsin can send down some of their snow plows or something, but this isn't those places. So it's a very real possibility that the game could get rescheduled. I don't think they're going to get 12 inches. I've never seen uh, Texas or a state down south like that get 12 inches. It is northern Texas, so I mean that impacts it, but I couldn't see that happening. So I'm going to say no. They do not have the Cotton Bowl rescheduled, but who knows? We'll see. If there's a whole bunch of snow, it could happen. I think that's all I had on that. That was really quick, guys. All right, here we go. I put it in the title. These are my two big topics, and honestly, I don't know. I'm already at an hour, guys. We might hit 2 hours with me covering these two topics. So, Emmanuel Acho, he was on what's their show called Speak, which, by the way, all this crazy stuff going on with Acho and Joy Taylor and everything else. Honestly, guys, I was saying at the beginning of the show, like, part of me is kind of a guy that's like, hey, I see this name trending. And this guy also made a take about the playoffs. So maybe I'll come out and talk about his take. And who knows? Maybe somebody maybe somebody sees my show and says, "Oh yeah, Big Ten Huddle. I'll see what he has to say about Emmanuel Acho and Joy Taylor." Nope. It's actually about the playoffs, but I really couldn't care less about the Emmanuel Acho and Joey Taylor thing. Whatever. Live your lives. I got college football playoffs to talk about, so we'll talk about it. Emmanuel Acho had to say Ohio State has the worst quarterback remaining. He said, period. I can confidently say that. All right, so I'm going going to go through. It was about a minute long segment. I am not going to play it for you guys because unfortunately, segments like that on TV. I'm going to take a drink really fast. Segments like that on TV, if I were to play it here on YouTube, it'd get flagged. I would lose monetization, and they would take my video down. Which nobody wants that, right? You guys want to watch the video. But I will tell you word for word what he said. I went through, I transcribed it. Here's what he had to say. Right after he said, I can confidently say that Will Howard is the worst quarterback left in the college football playoffs. He said, Riley Leonard, one, he has been in college for forever. I'm just going to say the whole statement and then I'll critique it. So you know he put a team on his back. They won because of Riley Leonard yesterday. Yeah, he said that. He's talking about the playoff game against Georgia. He won because of Riley Leonard yesterday. They didn't have all these first-round picks at wide receiver. There's no Emeka Ibuka. There's no Jeremiah Smith. There's no Quinshawn Judkins back there. You won because of Riley Leonard. Oh, my word. If he actually thinks that the reason why Notre Dame won against Georgia because of Riley Leonard, like that is insanity. That is insanity. The guy threw 15 for 24 for 90 yards in a touchdown pass, which was a touchdown pass the defense gave him. That was a turnover. Was it a fumble recovery? That was a turnover that happened because Kirby Smart was being stupid and trying to move the ball there at the end of the half. And so they get the turnover. It's in the red zone. It was what, 13, 15 yards or something like that. Riley Leonard gets up there, throws a touchdown pass right away. So I don't know. I'm going to give credit to the defense on that one. Obviously, give credit to Riley Leonard. He made the pass. But you're asking me, I'm going to give more credit to the defense getting the turnover with 30 seconds left in the half more than I'm going to give credit to Riley Leonard there. So that's the first thing. The defense also, defense and special teams won this game. It's not Riley Leonard won the game for him. The defense and special teams won this game for him. The special teams kicked 3 field goals in this game. These were not chip shot field goals. These were 3 field goals, 44 yards, 47 yards, and 49 yards, 48 yards. They also had a kick return touchdown to start off the second half. Like, you put all those things together, a lot of the scoring was because of special teams and the defense. And Billy Tuesday, man, I'm right there with you. Riley Leonard is a competitor. I'll give him that. I actually really like Riley Leonard. I'm not trying to dog the guy. I'm not trying to say the guy's a bad quarterback. I'm just saying, like, if your take is Riley Leonard won the game against Georgia, and that's why he's not considered the worst quarterback in the left in the college football playoffs, like, you gotta watch the game again, dude. That was not the way it was. There are some people on on shows and stuff like that that have some crazy takes, and I think sometimes they just have the take to maybe get some get some attention, and maybe that's what Acho is doing here. I don't listen to him a whole bunch else. I know there's a lot of people that don't like him. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on him. I don't really care. I don't listen to him enough to know if I like him or not. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't like him after this because it's like, dude, you really think that Riley Leonard won that game for him? Just absolutely crazy. And then the whole like no JJ, no Emeka, I'll give you that. Okay, Notre Dame does not have first round picks at wide receiver. Okay, I'll give you that. But I also don't think that's always the best reasoning to use for like why the number one reason why a quarterback isn't good. Like we've seen quarterbacks with really talented receivers all the time, like not look as good later on. But then we've also seen quarterbacks with really talented receivers. Like think of C.J. Stroud in NFL this past year. He was better when he had the less talented receivers last year than he was with Stephon Diggs and all these other guys this year. Now, I think he had some injuries. Again, I don't watch the NFL all the time, but I think he had some injuries and stuff. But still, like, you're looking at it, like, just because you have good wide receivers doesn't invalidate your ability as a quarterback. To me, that's such a stupid thing. I can see you using that in a situation where it's like, hey, these guys are really close. Well, who has the better wide receivers? Okay, I can see that there, right? But the the idea that that's the entire reason he's thrown for 2,000 yards. Will Howard has thrown for 3,500. I just I don't see what it is. Sorry guys, I gotta put it on my computer on do not disturb. I got somebody blowing up my phone right now. All right, and then the other thing of it, no Quinshawn Judkins back there. Listen, I've had nothing but Notre Dame fans telling me how amazing Jeremiah Love is in every single preview we've done because they say I don't talk about him enough, which probably fair. Jeremiah Love has been really good for Notre Dame this year. Probably fair. Haven't talked about him enough. But you're going to tell me no Quinshon Judkins, and then every single Notre Dame person who comes in my YouTube comments is going to tell me you don't talk about Jeremiah Love enough. He's one of the best running backs in the country. Like, I'm going to throw my hands up in the air and say, well, which is it? Here's what it is. Acho is just looking for a reason to try and prop up Riley Leonard for any reason against Will Howard, and he can't. Will Howard is a better quarterback than Riley Leonard. Again, I like Riley Leonard. I think Riley Leonard is a competitor. But as far as I'm looking at it, like Howard has shown he has a better arm. He's shown better pocket presence. He showed he's a competitor, that he's a leader as well. He's shown that he has running ability, not like Riley Leonard, I'll give him that, but he has running ability. The way I look at it, Will Howard is clearly the better quarterback than Riley Leonard. And I don't like if somebody would argue with me on that, I would listen, but I don't think there's a whole lot of things you could tell me that prove Riley Leonard is a better quarterback than Will Howard, and most certainly nothing Acho said really validated that for me. All right, other one. Here's what he said right after Riley Leonard. He said Quinn Ewers is the most talented quarterback remaining. Will he play like it? Again, I'm gonna wait till the end. Will he play like it? We gotta see. Because Quinn Ewers, you gave us 5 good minutes against Arizona State. Thank you for those 5 good minutes at the end of the game. But will he play like it? We got to see. So, someone who is obviously better than everybody else but hasn't played like it is better? Like, I don't know, guys. This is just me. If you don't play up to your potential of how good you're supposed to be and how good you are, that signals to me you're not a competitor, that you're not actually all that good or not all you cracked up to be. Now, I'm not saying Quinn Ewers isn't a competitor. I just think this is a really stupid argument to make for why Quinn Ewers is better than Will Howard. Is Quinn Ewers more talented and has better arm talent and stuff like that than Will Howard? Yes, I believe so. I believe Quinn Ewers has better arm talent, all that stuff. But has Quinn Ewers shown this season that he's a better overall quarterback, managing the game, running ability, competitor, leader, all that kind of stuff? No, I don't think he has. And I'm not trying to disrespect Quinn Ewers here. I think that's like the reality of it all. So give me the gritty player who has shown better production rather than the player who is more talented but hasn't shown it all season long. That's just me. And also, you want to talk about like draft stuff, right? We're gonna get into draft stuff here in a minute because that's something Acho says about Drew Aller. Will Howard is top 100 in the draft right now, according to PFF's like draft big board. Right now, you have whatever thoughts you want to have on PFF. I think their draft stuff is actually pretty good. I think that there's some areas where they are maybe a little too much, but I think their draft stuff is actually pretty good. And Will Howard is top 100 in the draft. Quinn Ewers is top 140 this year. So PFF is projecting that Will Howard to go before Quinn Ewers. Do I think that'll happen? Probably not. I think probably Quinn Ewers has the bigger name and stuff like that. He'll probably go before Will Howard, but it's not a for sure thing. Like these guys are these guys are close enough that you can't say for sure that Quinn Ewers is the better NFL draft prospect, whatever, over Will Howard. It's just nothing for sure. And then NFL draft consensus. If you've never been to that website, they take all like the mock drafts and stuff like that. Their one flaw is they even take mock drafts from like 2 or 3 years ago and input those. So like right now for 2026, the number one player in the 2026 NFL draft is Malachi Nelson. He's not the number one player. He just lost out to Madsen Maddox at Boise State. But because he was rated as the number one player in 2023, he's still rated as the number one player. That's where they get the biggest issue with this. But I still think that going to like the player's name and looking at where they are on mock drafts and stuff like that is important to do. And in that, Quinn Ewers is number 5 and Will Howard is number 7. Should we consider the fact that Will Howard is probably not really that high because of his recruiting ranking and Quinn Ewers was really high because of his recruiting ranking? For those guys to be 5 and 7 QBs, like that ought to tell you something. So yeah. But Hummus Hero says Quinn has suspect accuracy deep. He's good 20 yard or under 20 yards. Past that, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree with you there. So, Penn State guy says Ewers was 20 of 30, 322 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an INT versus ASU. Did better than people realize. Yeah, I mean he had good stats. So I'm not trying to pick him away and say that he didn't do well in the stat column or anything like that. But there's also some times in the game where the offense just falls asleep. And you do have to consider that Quinn Ewers doesn't have a running game right now. They ran the ball well against Clemson. They cannot run the ball against Arizona State. And when you don't have a run game, that really impacts you as a quarterback. But from what I've watched with Quinn Ewers this season, like it doesn't feel like he works all that well when the play doesn't go exactly the way Steve Sarkisian wants it to go. And you can say that for a lot of quarterbacks. So I'm not saying like Quinn Ewers isn't good or anything like that. I hope that's not what you guys hear me saying. I think Quinn Ewers is good. But to say like in your argument, well, Quinn Ewers is talented, but he just hasn't shown it yet, it's like, all right, I would rather go with the guy who has shown it, who has thrown for 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns this season instead of the other guy who threw for more interceptions and 3,200 yards and all this other stuff. I don't know. That's just me. I don't like the argument more than anything. But you're right, Penn State guy. He's had good stats, and sometimes people gloss over that because of the way the offense can fall asleep at times. So thanks for bringing that up. All right, and then last one. He says we already know the quarterback from Penn State. He's supposed to be a top 10 pick once he decides to declare for next year. He is the most physically talented, 6'5, 235. To some degree, he is mobile. All right. Again, do I think Drew Aller is a more talented quarterback than Will Howard? I do. I think Drew Aller is probably the more talented quarterback than Will Howard. I think that Drew Aller has also been inhibited with not as good of wide receiver play as Will Howard has had this year. So I could definitely hear an argument for Drew Aller is better than Will Howard. I could also definitely hear an argument for Will Howard is better than Drew Aller. It's a really hard choice to me. But the reasoning, again, is just really stupid. Like, I'm not trying to call Acho stupid, but he's not giving good takes here. So Drew Aller, his physicality is what sets him apart, but Will Howard is listed at 6'4", 235. Like, this reminds me of the NFL draft a couple years ago when, like, one guy was 6'3", the other guy was 6'2", and they're like, oh, yeah, this guy's just so much better physically. It's like, because he is an inch higher? Like, you're you're kidding me, an inch higher, and that's why he's the better quarterback. It doesn't make any sense. And then also when you look at when he was on the roster at Kansas State, Will Howard was 6'5", 242. So apparently either Kansas State was lying about his size, but he or he got an inch shorter at Ohio State. One of those two. And then the whole mobility thing, like, yeah, Drew Aller is mobile, and I think you give him credit for that, but you also have to give Will Howard credit for that. Now, this season, Drew Aller has run the ball better. 90 carries, 285 yards, 6 touchdowns. But Will Howard has also ran it 82 times, 165 yards for so far less yards, but 7 rushing touchdowns. So thanks, Billy. Billy says you can call Acho stupid. I appreciate it, Billy. Uh, thank you for giving me permission. But you look at the rushing stats from the past 2 years combined, both years they were starting. Will Howard, 163 carries, 516 yards, 16 touchdowns. Drew Aller, 164 carries, 495 yards, 10 touchdowns. Again, I'm not trying to say Will Howard is better than Drew Aller. I'm also not trying to say Drew Aller is better than Will Howard or anything like that. I just think the reasoning is really dumb. I think that the take that Will Howard is the worst quarterback left in the college football playoffs, and there's no discussion about it, is really dumb. And I mean, if you wanted to give me an interesting reason why you wouldn't give me a thought out research take, I'd be willing to listen to it. But I'm not going to listen to you just spew blabber and give terrible takes afterwards. So, yeah. Penn State guy says Aller's more talented, but Howard playing the best right now. Yeah, I think I kind of said that earlier, but I think you summed it up right there, Penn State guy. And like I said, some of that could be the wide receiver. Some of that could be, the way the offense is structured right now for Ohio State and everything. Like, it could be a multitude of reasons why. But you're right. I mean, there's really nobody in the playoffs playing as well as Will Howard is right now. But I mean, that's also what happens when you start out 21-0 against Tennessee and then 34-0 against Oregon. It's really hard not to be playing the best out of everybody. So yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. I think my final take on it all is like I'm not saying Will Howard is the best quarterback in the college football playoffs, but he's not the worst. And these takes that Emmanuel watching is giving are just downright kind of stupid. So that's all I wanted to point out there. All right, one more commercial, guys, and then we're going to get to Kirk Herbstreit, my thoughts on everything he had to say when he was on Andy and Ari earlier today, and we'll be right back.
Home Field is your go-to destination for premium collegiate apparel with a passion for comfort and a flair for vintage design. Home Field brings you gear that is comfortable and stylish. With over 150 colleges to choose from, Home Field digs deep into the archives, uncovering forgotten logos, iconic mascots, and legendary moments to create one-of-a-kind apparel. Use my code TBTH for 15% off for new customers, or use my link in the description.
Back here on the Big Ten Huddle. All right, so like I said, this Kirk Herbstreit thing could take a while. We could do a 2 hour episode tonight. I was not planning on doing a 2 hour episode by myself. I got a ton of topics, and I was like, oh yeah, I won't talk very, very long. That was stupid of me to think. So yeah. So I have a lot of thoughts on Kirk Herbstreit, guys. If you don't know, Kirk Herbstreit appeared on Andy and Ari, their On Three show earlier today. Not something I watch every single day. Check in on it every now and then. I'm not sure what you guys' thoughts are on it. I did reference their top 10 the other day in one of my videos. I thought it was not a good top 10. So I wasn't trying to be rude to them, but it needed some tweaking. I felt like there was some SEC bias in there. As far as having Kirk Herbstreit on, it was a very interesting interview, and Kirk Herbstreit had a lot of thoughts that I felt like were hypocritical, and he was just trying to fish. He was trying to fish for some sympathy, and I don't know. You guys can call me a bad person if you want, but I just don't have a whole lot of sympathy for Kirk Herbstreit. I think that he's not the best guy in the world, and he tries to make himself look like a martyr and stuff like that sometimes. And yeah, that's actually the first thing he has to say that I'm going to critique. So this is Kirk Herbstreit talking about how he will take the bullet for Will Howard and
I
Ryan Day.
wasn't even critical of Ohio State. I was critical of Ryan Day needing an armed guard 24/7 outside of his house. That's what I was critical of. I was critical of some of the things they say to some of the players on social media where here's my problem is I talked to Will Howard. I talked to Ryan Day behind curtains. I hear the pain that they feel. And they can't say anything. I can. I'll take the bullets.
Kirk Herbstreit is the martyr for Will Howard and Ryan Day. He'll take the bullet. Apparently the way he makes it sound, Ryan Day and Will Howard are just crying behind the scenes to Kirk Herbstreit about how mean the Big Ten or the Ohio State fans are and everything else. And like this is one of my biggest, and this is more of an Ohio State fan. We'll get to some of the big stuff, Big Ten stuff here in a little bit. I got 5 or 6 different things that he says that we'll get through. But like to act like Ohio State is the only fan base that's mean is just downright stupid. There are so many. This is a segment I would love to get Mark Rogers on with me. I should have got Mark Rogers here with me for this one because I think Mark would have been very insightful on this as well. Like there are some fan bases that just kind of get pushed under the rug, and I think Kirk Herbstreit is just so hurt by Ohio State fans that he can't see it. Like he can't see why there are so many Ohio State fans that are upset. And don't get me wrong, needing armed guard and death threats and stuff like that is really stupid that you would need that as a as a coach. But I've also never heard anybody talk about the armed guard that they need, that Ryan Day and his family need, other than Kirk Herbstreit. And Kirk Herbstreit, we'll get to it a little bit later on, but he lies a lot. Like, so as far as I'm concerned, I don't know if Kirk Herbstreit is exactly the most honorable and the most upright, person for me to be looking for information. He's not a reporter; he's an analyst. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. But as far as I'm concerned, like Ohio State fans are crazy, yes, but their craziness is not unique. And I'm not I'm not making up and saying like, oh, it's okay what Ohio State fans have done. I'm saying that if Kirk Herbstreit really hated this kind of behavior by fans, he would work harder to get it out of the sport altogether and not just preach to Ohio State fans about how much of lunatics they are. As far as I'm concerned, Kirk Herbstreit, if you want to see the fan bases in college football change from being, so hostile and so, judgmental and everything else, and like you need to address that with all the fans in college football because I got 4 examples for you that have all happened within the past year and a half, I think it was. There were reports of an Alabama high school football fans sending death threats to a player who exposed their coach for sexual harassment. The coach resigned, and the player was the one that put the information out there that he had been sexually harassing the players. Well, he got death threats from Alabama high school football fans, high school, for bringing to light that the coach was doing this, and they're mad at him. Like, the CFB committee got death threats last year for leaving Florida State out of the playoffs. Florida State, not an SEC, not a Big Ten school. Like Florida State was the fan base sending death threats to the college football playoff committee. A Michigan fan, Daniel Rippey, and I'm not just picking on Michigan here. You can see I'm talking about every fan base, and I'm saying it about Ohio State fans ourselves. Like they are a little too crazy at times. But Daniel Rippey, from Livermore, California, a Michigan native and University of Michigan fan, used Facebook Messenger to threaten a shooting at Ohio State University during its annual game against Michigan and vowed to hurt players on the team, to go after players on the team. Like you guys can look this up. Don't just take my word for it. Go Google it. He went on Facebook Messenger and threatened a school shooting at Ohio State. Like it's just last one. Deion Sanders last year. This quote kind of went by people a little bit because it was so quick and he just kind of said it. He said, "I don't mind getting death threats. I get them every week. But a kid, it's not good. He does not deserve a death threat over a game. At the end of the day, this is a game." I mean, what's Deion Sanders saying there? Like, oh, he gets death threats? Like, but he doesn't care? I think you should care. I don't think fans should be sending death threats. All I'm saying here, guys, is like to act like Ohio State fans are the only crazy fans out there and they are, the lunatics that are mistreating Will Howard and Ryan Day and nobody else is experiencing this kind of stuff is just completely false. I'm not justifying the behavior. I think the behavior is abhorrent as well. But as far as I'm concerned, if Kirk Herbstreit really cared about college football fans and their attitude towards coaches and everything else, like he would do an off-season project for like, let's be better to our coaches, let's be better to our players, let's do this kind of stuff. Like instead, he just gets on the broadcast and talks about how terrible Ohio State fans are, which I get it. You feel like you're doing it, for one fan base, maybe one fan base at a time. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think Kirk Herbstreit cares about all of it overall as much as he just cares about we want Ohio State fans to stop being mean to Ryan Day and Will Howard, which, again, I don't think they should be mean, and I don't think they should act like in a lot of the ways they have. But it's an issue across college football. It's not an Ohio State centric issue where it's only them. Are they probably a little bit more about it because it's the largest fan base in college football? Yeah, yeah. But to act like Ryan Day and Will Howard is being held against their will to play and coach at Ohio State. Like Ryan Day's been there for what 6 or 7 years now. Like the dude could have left if it was that bad. He could have left. Now you might say, well, he doesn't have a job right away. He's doing just fine on money. Like he could leave and be just fine. I'm sure he can get an analyst role or something like that in the NFL. Like he's not hurting for money. He's doing just fine with money. Again, not saying the behavior of Ohio State fans is okay. I'm just saying if you're going to talk about how terrible the fan behavior of Ohio State fans are, you should also talk about how terrible it is across college football overall, because it's not just Ohio State fans. It's so much more than that. Like I said, Alabama high school football has it. It's so much more than that. Hummus Hero says, I still think Kirk loves Ohio State, but he just has a superiority complex, in my opinion. He doesn't identify with the fans whatsoever, so he should keep his mouth shut. I think Kirk Herbstreit loves Ohio State football too. I think he got some unfair hate, and I'll talk about this at the end. I think he has some unfair hate with his son going to Michigan. I think your kids make your own decisions. I know that more now as a father than I ever did before. But as far as I'm concerned, like your kids make their own decisions. You know, Kirk Herbstreit wasn't like in his kid's ear, like, "Yeah, you should go to Michigan. You should go to Michigan." Like he's letting his kid make his own decision. It is what it is, and if his kid wants to walk on at Michigan, more power to him. Sure, he was like, "Son, you know that kind of didn't do me a whole lot of great publicity there," but he probably doesn't care. At the end of the day, like I think Kirk Herbstreit always struggled with the fans ever since he was a player at Ohio State. And it's just bled over into his analyst career now because he does try so hard to be fair that he is almost against Ohio State at times. And I think Ohio State fans hate that. And I think for some Ohio State fans, they hated it because there were Ohio State fans that liked Kirk Herbstreit. And so to see him become one of the biggest analysts in all of college football and feel like Ohio State fans are mistreated by him, like I think they hate that too. So, yeah. So let's go on to the next one. This is Kirk Herbstreit trying to convince everybody that he's truthful, that he's not making anything up, and everything he says is 100% truthful. So
I, you know, I don't go. Have you guys watched me for 29 years in this era of shock jock and throw shit against the wall and who can say the craziest thing to go trending on Twitter? Like I've never done that in my life. I research and I give you opinion, and you don't have to agree with it, but it's never an agenda. It's
all right. So he says he doesn't have an agenda. He says he's not shock jaw and throw stuff against the wall and all that stuff. Just a couple weeks ago, here's what he said, guys. He said, "I don't want to hear about wins." I don't understand how that's not shock jaw and hot takey. But okay. He says, "I don't want to hear about wins. Just because you have 11 wins doesn't mean you're better than a team that had maybe a tougher road that had 9 wins." I think we got too caught up in how many wins you have. I mean, like I get it, right? You're trying to say a team that has 11 wins might not be as good as a team that has 9 wins because they played a cupcake schedule. And like I've said on this show before, I think that's a valid argument against Indiana. I don't personally think that argument is correct. I think that Indiana deserved their way in, and Alabama and Ole Miss and South Carolina did not. But, I can understand why you would have that opinion. However, like, this is just Kirk Herbstreit trying to act like little old me, like, "Oh, don't blame me. Nothing's wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. Don't go against me." When in reality, like, he will get up there and he will give you a hot take and he will talk about how he'll take a bullet for the other, the coach. And then he'll get up there and be like, "Yeah, first take. What do you think now?" Like, but he's not trying to be shock jaw. He's not trying to be hot takey. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Listen in, and if you are of the opinion that Indiana shouldn't have gotten in, that's fine. All I ask is that you remain consistent. And Kirk Herbstreit was not consistent in his take when it came to the Big Ten and the SEC in 2017. Because considering what he had to say on the selection show in 2017 of the college football playoffs, he had this to say against an 11-1 Bama team who was put in over a 10-2 Ohio State, even though Ohio State had 2 better wins, but Ohio State had the worst loss against Iowa. Here's what Kirk Herbstreit had to say. He said, "The losses matter." So wins matter too much, and now the losses do matter. Okay. "To lose the way Ohio State lost to Iowa, it sent a message the committee couldn't forget." So, like, it sends a message to the committee back then, but now, yeah, Erica's remembering that game. I hear you, Erica. I'm trying to not remember it. But now, like, wins don't matter, and you can't only count wins And if it's an embarrassing loss to, say, a Kentucky or in Oklahoma, it's not as big of a deal. So, like, all I'm saying, guys, it's not consistent. Later on, even Kirk said, when did I say anything about an SEC school? Because I didn't rip on Tennessee for not being in the game, is what it was, or I didn't even know. I didn't say Ole Miss should have been there or South Carolina should have been there. I didn't say anything about the SEC. Well, guys, he's literally saying a team with 9 wins who had a harder schedule. There are 4 teams in college football who had 9 wins with a harder strength of schedule than Indiana. There are 4 teams: Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Illinois. Congratulations, Illinois. It appears that Kirk Herbstreit was talking about you. You were the 9-win team that Kirk Herbstreit was talking about, because he wasn't talking about anybody in the SEC. He says, I wasn't talking about anybody in the SEC. I don't know where people are getting the Ole Miss and the South Carolina, yada, yada, yada. It's like, dude, everybody knew who you were talking about because everybody else was talking about him too. And obviously, if you do any type of research, which you say you do, into strength of schedule and everything else, there were only 4 teams that had 9 wins this season. 4 teams that had 9 wins this season that were a higher strength of schedule. Again, Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Illinois. But congratulations, Illinois. He wasn't talking about SEC teams. He was talking about you. He does talk about that a little bit later on. So, but I thought that was a funny little snippet there. Okay, so he talks about the Final Four and the ESPN not being SEC homers, because the Final Four is actually exactly what ESPN wanted to
Would
have.
not have paid for a better Final Four with Notre Dame and Ohio State and Penn State and Texas. The only one missing is Michigan. If you could somehow wedge Michigan in, so like this idea that we want Alabama and Texas A&M and Auburn, and are you kidding me? Like, if you're asking us who we would want, we'll take Ohio State every year, Notre Dame. Like, this is a ratings bonanza.
All right, so Kirk isn't wrong that Ohio State and Notre Dame are 2 of the biggest brands in all of college football. Texas is up there too, but obviously, that wasn't a team that he mentioned. I think he was talking about all of them, but those were just 2 that he mentioned right away. But as far as I'm concerned, like, if he's talking about TV ratings, it doesn't always align with brand. Like this season, Florida and Kentucky had better TV ratings all season long than Notre Dame did. The top 10 teams that you can go look this up on Nielsen. I forgot to write it down. I apologize, but go look it up. The top 5 teams were Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, and Michigan. Those are the top 5 teams in college football this year. And then after that, it was like Penn State wasn't even in the top 10. After that, it was like South Carolina, Kentucky, Florida, Clemson, teams like that. Notre Dame and Penn State weren't even in the top 10. But he's saying that this is exactly what ESPN wanted. ESPN wanted all these teams. But what nobody ever talks about, which is such a big deal, is that the more teams that the SEC has continuing playing into the postseason, the more the SEC network has to talk about, so the more people are going to tune in to the SEC network. It was one of the reasons why Alabama made it over Florida State last year. If you didn't have Alabama in the college football playoffs last year, you were looking at from December, like early December or late November, whenever that selection show was, you were looking from then on, no more SEC talk for the rest of that year. But you couldn't have that. You had to have SEC talk going into January with the college football playoffs and everything. So it's not just about TV ratings. It's so much more than that. Which, by the way, if Alabama had gotten in, which is what Kirk was fighting for, whether he wants to say it or not, if Alabama had gotten in at that 11th spot, you would have had the possibility of a Final Four of Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Alabama. Alabama had the 3rd highest ratings this year in all of college football. So you're telling me that it just so happened they were fighting for 9-win SEC teams to be in the playoffs? No. They were definitely fighting for Bama. You can look at this every which way. They were definitely, call me a conspiracy theorist if you want. I don't care. Like, they were definitely fighting for Bama to be in those playoffs because they saw the possibility. Oh my gosh, can you see a Final Four of Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, and Alabama, which were the 4 highest ratings teams in all of college football this season. I think Oregon might have been in that top 10 as well. Maybe not. I'll have to look it up. I apologize. Look up Nielsen top 10 college football teams TV ratings this season. This is a really short clip. Oh, I apologize. I forgot to look at you guys' chat this time. David Greenshield said everyone knew Bama stunk this year. Them getting in would have been on reputation only. Exactly. And they didn't deserve it with that Oklahoma loss. This is less about me trying to fight for Indiana because, like I said, I can see a argument on Indiana not getting in, but it's more so on like the craziness of thinking like, oh, Bama should have got in. Which Kirk goes on to say he doesn't agree that Bama should have been in, but it's like it doesn't align with anything you were saying before. Yeah. Okay, this is a really quick one that I just thought was funny that Kirk said. I'll be really quick.
Read every behind the scenes of us.
I Twitter a long time ago. I don't have it. I just have a buddy. My son tweets stuff out, or I don't. It's ridiculous.
Oh,
guys, he deleted Twitter. He deleted Twitter a year ago. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the very beginning when he said, "I can take that. I'll take the bullet for Ryan Day and Will Howard." The dude's talking about taking the bullet for Ryan Day and Will Howard, and then later on in the interview, he says, "Oh yeah, I deleted Twitter. My buddy, wait, no, my son takes care of that." So the dude is putting all these takes out there and going after the Ohio State fan base just for his son to be the one to to manage all of these crazy Ohio State fans and has mentioned all of these crazy fans getting community noted on Twitter. Like, does anybody else think that's just absolutely insane and crazy that you're talking this big game like, oh yeah, I'll take the blame, I'll take the bullet, like they can't say anything but I can't, and then it's like, oh yeah, but I deleted Twitter and my son runs it, so my son can actually be the one who takes the ridicule and the blame and everything else, not me. Like, really? I just like, it's absolutely crazy that he would say that. Yeah, Philip, I totally agree. Logic doesn't fit the narrative. I totally agree. All right. Like I said, that was a short one, and more so just because I thought it was hilarious that I had to mention it. Okay, one more, and then I have a long statement. I broke it up into 4 parts. I told you guys I had so much on this. I told you I had so much on this. This is about Kirk wants to celebrate the sport and not get so upset about everything around it. This is a really good one, guys.
I just love, like you guys, I love the sport. I don't love a conference. I love college football, and I just want the sport to get through all this chaos of realignment and NIL and portal and the new 12-team playoff and just get back to just having it settled. And I don't know if we're ever going to get there again, but I'm praying that we can somehow get some structure.
When was college football ever settled? When did college football ever have structure and people didn't fight over it? Like, this is one of the reasons why people love college football, because of how disorganized and because of how crazy the structure is. Like, a lot of people choose the NFL because of the structure and of everything else with it. Like, college football was built on, we have people who aren't watching games down in Florida, but they are voters up in Minnesota, and they get a vote on the national championship. You're telling me that was that's the structure we got to get back to? It's not. That's not what he's referring to. What he's referring to is the structure of the SEC is best and everybody else has to follow along behind it. Now, I don't have a quote to tell you that's what he's saying, but you guys go listen to the interview. You tell me for yourselves. Like, that is what I'm hearing the entire time. Is like, oh, if we could just get back to the way it was before. He literally said, and just get back to having it settled. I don't know if we're ever going to get back there again. I'm praying that we just can somehow get some structure. College football has never had structure. guys. College football has never had like a clean cut system of like, oh yeah, you got this many teams in the playoffs and this conference and that conference and everything. Like it has always been mass chaos. It has always been mass pandemonium that college football is choosing their national championships from AP poll writers who have never watched a game about another team. And you now have people who are trying to watch 67 football games a weekend and then trying to vote on who is the top 25 in college football. And you're having them vote the very next morning. Like literally this time right now, and it's been this way forever. It's not just right now. You're having people try to watch 60 different college football games on a Saturday, trying to give up their entire Saturday for that. And then you're having them vote on the top 25 teams, what, 12 hours later? If that? I, to make us believe that like there was at one point a settled structure in college football, we just got to get back to that. That is so insane. That is so crazy. Like chaos is not what changed. The chaos in this sport is not what changed. There's always been chaos. What changed is the fact that with even more teams, 12 teams now included, we are not just arguing about like, oh, this team should have been in the 4-team playoffs. We're arguing about targeting rules. We're arguing about who should have been the 10th team in the playoff structure. We're arguing about so much more. And there's so much more to argue about now because there's been this system that's created where it's like, well, if your conference is better, then your teams are going to get the benefit of the doubt. And it just so huge. It's gotten so big with the chaos, the lack of structure, everything else. A lot of college football fans, if they admitted it deep down inside, that's kind of one of the reasons why they love college football, because of the drama, because of the talking points, because of all the hypotheticals and everything else. Like there is so much with it. It just it's crazy. It's crazy. All right. That's all I got on that, guys. Okay, so Kirk finally gets to Indiana. He has his take on Indiana, which, if you remember, he said Indiana having 11 wins and beating nobody. That doesn't mean they're one of the 12 best teams. There's a big difference between deserving and best. That's what he said after Indiana lost to Notre Dame. Now, he is going to reference the stuff that he said with Linda Cohen that they put on Twitter about the wins as well, but he's talking about both situations. It's really hard to delineate because he kind of goes back and forth, but I'll do my best to keep you informed here. So this was the first statement he had on Indiana. This one's really
when I was talking about Indiana, it was a bad example because I didn't have enough time. Don't take an SEC team. Take another Big Ten team as an example.
All right, so that's where he's talking about, like, if only there was a Big Ten team that you could take as an example here. Don't take a 9-win SEC team as an example. Again, the only team with 9 wins, not just in the Big Ten and the SEC, in college football, the only team with 9 wins this season that wasn't in the SEC, that just so happens to be in the Big Ten, that had a higher strength of schedule, was Illinois. So you're like, oh, he's going to say Illinois. Should have been. Illinois did play at Eugene. Illinois did play Penn State. Maybe he's talking about Illinois. Here is him clarifying who he was talking about as that 9-win team, because he says it's not any of those 4 teams I just mentioned. Just listen.
And my point wasn't to pick on them. They just had a magical year. My point was, let's say you had a 9-3 Iowa as a discussion. And Iowa that year went to Columbus. They went to Penn State. They went to Ann Arbor. They went to Eugene. And they went to Madison. For whatever reason, they had 5 brutal road games in the Big Ten. And somehow, Kirk Ferentz got those guys to 9-3.
So we're playing hypothetical games again. And how sad is it that in order for a 9-win Big Ten team would have to have this kind of Big Ten schedule? Here is the schedule that he outlines. You would have to go at Columbus, Penn State, at Ann Arbor, Eugene, and at Madison. The SEC teams don't even play 5 road games. SEC teams don't even play 5 road games. And he's saying if you want to be a 9-win team in the Big Ten to get to the college football playoffs, you got to win Three of those five, you got to win two of those five road games in order to get in. Don't even think about what the out of conference schedule is, right? But you gotta play five road games in your conference, and those got to be your road games. Columbus, Eugene, Penn State, Madison, Ann Arbor. That is insane to say that those like that would be how you have to get in. Like let's look at Alabama's schedule. Alabama's schedule in 2024. They did not play that many road games. I'm sorry, guys. I'm looking this up here on the fly. Okay, their road games this season, and people were advocating for them to be in with 9 wins. All right, their road games at Madison, at Wisconsin, a bad Wisconsin team this year, but still at Madison. Sure, let's give it to them. At Vanderbilt, Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma. So they played 5 road games this year. Only 4 in their conference, but 5 because of the out of conference schedule. And you got people saying that they should be in because they went at Vanderbilt, at Oklahoma. But a Big Ten team, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it for you guys. You guys got to go at Columbus, Ohio, at Penn State, at Oregon, at Michigan, at Wisconsin. Like, I mean, the SEC bias and everything, like it's just screaming right now. And he wants to act like it's not there. Like this, either this guy just believes that everybody just thinks his word is gospel and will believe everything he says, or he does not hear the craziness coming out of his mouth. Like that is my only explanation here. He must not realize what he is saying is truly as crazy as it is. I know you guys are going crazy in the comments. I'm sorry, I can't see him. I got to finish through this stuff, but I just it's absolutely wild. Okay, he continues on talking about the hypothetical Iowa this season that was 9-3. We talked about Iowa if they went 9-3 this season and if they would possibly be in the college football playoffs. We talked about Illinois and them, but them going to Eugene and them playing Penn State was not enough though to even get any consideration, any talk for the playoffs. Because apparently, if Illinois wanted to make it in the playoffs, which who knows, Illinois is not Iowa, so maybe they wouldn't have got it. But just absolutely insane. Okay, here is his next, where he kind of goes a little bit more into the wins and Iowa
I guess
93.
this is what my point was. Just because we get these teams that get to 11 or 12 wins, and you got a team like Iowa that's sitting there at 9-3, and they went to those 5 road games I mentioned. I'm just saying, let's have a discussion on, is it automatically that you get to 11 wins so you automatically get in? Or should Iowa at 9-3 be looked at and say, oh my God, they went to Columbus at night. They went to Penn, like all the way that entire list of teams. That's brutal.
It's not automatic though. Like he wants to talk about like, oh, Indiana should just be in automatically if they win 11 games. Indiana winning 11 games did not make it automatic. Alabama, if they just didn't lose to Oklahoma, I said this on the show and people hated me for it. That's fine. Like I get it. I'm not trying to be against Indiana. I'm just trying to tell you the reality of what it probably was. If Alabama won 10 games this season, if they would have beat Oklahoma, they would have been seeded over Indiana. Ole Miss, if they would have beat Kentucky, they would have been seeded over Indiana. It was not just like an automatic, like, oh, yep, they got 11 wins. They got to get in there. Because it's because Alabama lost to Oklahoma. If they would have beaten Oklahoma, lost to LSU, I think Alabama still would have got in. If they would have played LSU at LSU close, they would have probably got in over Indiana with 11 wins, which Indiana was 10th. So you would have had another one to cut them out there. But it's not an automatic. You saw Indiana get 11 wins and be 10th in the race. It was not an automatic that Indiana was going to be in. So his whole thought process there. And then Kirk just to say Indiana didn't belong if a 9-3 Iowa team played at Columbus, Penn State, Ann Arbor, Eugene, and Madison, like it's just absolutely insane that would be the schedule a Big Ten team would have to have. to get in with only 9 wins. It's absolutely insane. All right, last one here. It's another short one. Kirk kind of sums up his whole thought process here. So
By the way, I'm not saying Indiana wasn't one of the best teams. I'm just saying I felt like the logic behind them getting in was 11 wins.
he literally did say it though. Like he's trying to backtrack and say, I didn't say Indiana wasn't one of the best teams. He literally said his entire statement. I will read it for you. His entire statement he said after the Indiana Notre Dame game on the desk, on TV, recorded. People heard it. People wrote it down. People recorded it. He said, I'm not going to sit here and say, why was Indiana in? But Indiana, with what you guys like to talk about, they have 11 wins. They got to be one of the best teams, Herb Street said. Indiana was outclassed in this game. So he's saying that's what they were saying. And then he goes on to say, Indiana was outclassed in that game. It was not a team that should have been on that field when you consider the other teams that could have been there. It's no knock on Indiana. They had a great year. But we've got to move forward with the playoff and hope that the committee does a better job of weighing who the best 12 are versus who's the most deserving. Because by golly, they've got 11 wins. They didn't beat anybody, but they've got 11 wins. That's a bunch of BS. We need to find the best teams. And last night, it was incredibly evident just standing on that field and watching the game, it played out. So he's trying to say, I'm not saying Indiana wasn't one of the 12 best teams, but then he has that statement directly after the game, which granted, he didn't see the Alabama game. He didn't see the South Carolina game against Illinois at that point in time. But still, to act like you weren't advocating against Indiana, it's more lying, it's more deception, it's more gaslighting. Like it is all of these things. This is what Kirk Herbstreit has become because of how wrong his takes are. At the end of the day, Kirk Herbstreit got a lot of criticism, and a lot of it was because of his connection to ESPN, right? A lot of the criticism was because of the SEC bias and stuff like that, his connection with ESPN. Some of it, I will agree, was a bit unwarranted. But Herbstreit doesn't get to just like gaslight people and lie to them and try to completely rephrase a story. We literally have everything that happened in that story. You want to just act like it didn't happen, like act like you didn't say it. It's just completely preposterous that somebody could think we've all seen this much, and especially with Google, right? Maybe before Google existed, so we couldn't look up your words, but we can literally look up what you said before, and for you to say, "Oh yeah, I wasn't trying to say Indiana wasn't one of the 12 best teams," and then you have a statement like that. So I don't know, Kirk Herbstreit. Maybe instead of doing your media tour with Andy and Ari and all these other podcasters and everything else, maybe instead of doing that, maybe you talk about how amazing of a season this was and how crazy the ups and downs of it were with the playoffs and people thinking Indiana didn't deserve to be in. And then you saw everybody else, kind of struggle in their games and everything. Like maybe you talk about all that. And then here in the offseason, you go back to work and you say, were we SEC bias? You honestly think about it. Don't just refute it to the fans and act like it didn't happen. But you honestly think about, were we SEC bias? Is this something we need to look at to improve as a program, as a TV show? Because in this show, he literally, in the Andy and Ari show, he literally says like, oh yeah, we aren't SEC bias on College Game Day. We went to Cal last year. We went to Indiana and watched a game. Makes them not SEC bias because they went to Cal, because they went to Indiana. Not their analysis, not the gaslighting, not advocating for a 9-win team, one big win and two big losses in over an 11-win team. Like, I don't know. Again, I'm not advocating that, Indiana was 100% the right decision. I can understand an argument. Can't understand this argument. It's not coherent. It's not correct. It's certainly not good. So That's all I got on the Kirk Herbstreit stuff. Um, Boy, I tell you guys, I did not anticipate that I would do a 2 hour episode. I thought I had enough content to barely make it an hour. Apparently, I can talk a whole lot more than I realized. So, Zach will be back on Sunday, and I will be back with you most likely by myself on Thursday after the Penn State game. We'll probably do like we did before, where I probably wait maybe a half hour, 45 minutes. I won't wait as long as I waited last time. Last time I waited like an hour. So I'll let you guys watch kind of your recap shows. If there's like a Penn State post game show you want to watch or something like that, I'll let you guys watch those. And then I'll go live probably about a half hour, 45 minutes after the game for the Penn State one. And then I do a post game for the Voice of College Football Ohio State channel. So that one will take a little bit longer, but I would do a post game for that Ohio State game as well. No matter what happens, if Penn State loses, I'll still come on here. If Ohio State loses, I'll still come on here. I'll talk about it with you guys. My mood will probably be determined much more by the results of the Ohio State Texas game. Probably won't be too upset either way with what happens with Penn State. I want Penn State to win. Actually rooting for Penn State in that one. But my mood will be much more determined by the Ohio State Texas game. Probably not too much, but maybe at least a little. So, all right, guys, that's all I got for you. JR, you are a check. I tell you, I wrote down how many pages. I wrote down 7 pages of notes for this episode. I wrote down 7 pages. I was like, yeah, it probably gets me an hour. So, next time, 3.5 max. 3.5 max. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you're a basketball fan, probably will not have a basketball episode on Thursday night because of the playoff game. Kent and I, or me and Sonny. Sonny said he might be able to come on if Kent can't. We'll do an episode for you on Monday. But that's all I got for you guys tonight. Thank you so much for being here, listening to my chatty Cathy, listening to my rants, listening to me talk about Kirk Herbstreit. I hope everything I said came across the right way. And at the end of the day, don't do the death threat stuff and things like that. Don't be terrible to the coaches and the players and stuff like that. Just be a fan. Just be a fan. Enjoy your team. If your team loses, it sucks. I get it. But maybe just move on. Thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate it.